David Cameron did ask Barack Obama to issue a warning that Britain would be at the back of the queue for a trade deal with the U.S. if it left the European Union. A former White House advisor has revealed Downing Street insisted the then president was using his own words when he made the infamous remarks during a visit to London 2 months before the 2016 Brexit vote. But there was speculation at the time that the comment may have been scripted by Number 10 because the word queue is rarely used by Americans who prefer the phrase back of the line.
Exactly,
That
that's
gave away
right.
the whole
Exactly,
thing.
it gives it away, doesn't it? We're staying on the subject of Brexit. I've got a piece to play. We don't see Jacob Rees-Mogg very often, but I thought he did a great job here where he was live on LBC Radio and he was talking about the Brexit dividend for NHS spending.
Good to see you, Mr. Rees-Mogg. This is the first opportunity we've had to speak since the announcement of all that extra cash for the NHS last weekend. Is this the Brexit bonus, the Brexit dividend? Where's this cash come from, Mr. Rees-Mogg? Morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Ferrari. It's a great pleasure, as always, to be on your programme. Part of it is the Brexit dividend. The Brexit dividend is real, that we have cut our expenditure, or will once we've left, by about £10 billion a year net, and that can feed into the increase in expenditure to the NHS. It is not exclusively from the NHS, from the Brexit dividend.
The Institute for Fiscal Studies would not agree with you. They say the figures about the Brexit dividend don't factor in additional costs the government could face, such as new customs controls and investment in, I don't know, space projects or anything else that might be required.
No, I don't accept what the IFS is saying on that. What the government decides to spend on customs control will be a matter for it. We could actually cut our customs expenses if we opened up more to the rest of the world, which would be an intelligent policy. Currently, our customs expenses are created by the EU, who tells us how to operate our customs. Once we've left, we'll be free to cut costs in that area. In terms of space projects, there may be some projects that we involve ourselves in voluntarily, but that'll be a government choice, and the government will look at it and say, do we want the money for the NHS or do we want the money for some random EU project? And I can guess which most people in Britain would want.
Feeds straight into our first caller, so let's get the calls on straight away. Jonathan's in Finchley, and you're through to Jacob Rees-Mogg even, Jonathan, and I think you want to pursue a point I just made. Good morning to you.
Good morning, gentlemen. Look,
Good morning,
Mr.
Jonathan.
Rees-Mogg, this is a little bit like the fairies at the bottom of your garden, isn't it, this business of the Brexit dividend? Now, there are two impacts of Brexit. Number one is the straight accounting. And yes, we pay in more to the EU than we get back from the EU. But the other point is the economy, and 88% of economists who responded to a poll said it would be best to remain in the EU. And the Office for Budget Responsibility said that there will be a loss of revenue of £15 billion.
38 billion, actually. I have to say that the OBR says Britain, as a result of Brexit, is £38 billion each year worse off. Carry on, Jonathan, just correcting one figure.
Loss of revenue of 15 billion, that's the figure I've got. That's significantly higher than the UK's net EU contribution. So, look, Mr. Rees-Mogg, this is a figment of the imagination of the Brexiteers, isn't it? Talk of a Brexit dividend is every bit as misleading as the £350 million that was on the side of the bus.
Well, Jonathan, your first point was that under straight accounting, the saving is there. So is that your point? And you then went on to other points, but you accept that under straight accounting, there is a £10 billion saving. That was what you said.
Of course, we have to pay our divorce settlement for some years, so it will not.
Yes,
be
but
there.
once that's completed,
For a few years.
Once that's completed, you're accepting there's a straight accounting saving.
But that is...
OK, thank you, that's important, because then you move on to fairies at the bottom of the garden. Frankly, they're your fairies, not mine. That the issue here is economic forecasts...
Let's let Mr. Jonathan, I promise I'll get in. Let's just let Mr. Rees-Mogg have a bit of a crack of the whip. Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Economic forecasts that have been consistently wrong. I've got here from the Daily Mail today what the CBI said before the vote. It said on voting to leave, we would destroy 950,000 jobs and cost the economy £100 billion. That hasn't happened.
Did they mean immediately, as almost as of that
by
day?
2020. So
by
they,
2020.
but the 950,000 jobs as a result of voting to leave, and the Treasury said the same. We've had this history of people who want to keep us in the European Union inventing figures.
And is the IFS and the OBR, would you count those among that number?
The OBR is impeccably independent, but all its forecasts have been wrong.
IFS?
The IFS is, I think, now a relatively politically involved operation, and it receives a lot of money from the government and the EU, and therefore I think is not as independent as it used to be.
I thought he answered really well. He's very cool, he's very calm, and he's very polite.
That's what I love about him. And that gentleman is a prime ministerial material. Cool under fire, sensible, writes down the points, and delivers. And I thank God for his life. He's pointing out the fact that all these organizations that are coming out today with all these strange figures, they've said it in the past, and they've been wrong. So who are we to trust them now? Because majority of them want us to be in the EU. So they would throw figures in the air to make people become afraid and vote the other way. They're still fighting, you know, but we need to just stand firm. We voted to leave, and I believe we're going to benefit a lot from it. When the dust settles, the economy is going to grow. All the companies have been shut, manufacturing sector has been shut down. We can start manufacturing. We have great inventors in the system, people that can come with great ideas. We need to, you know, pick those up. The agricultural sector, farmers were being paid by the EU not to farm. We just have to carry on farming and supplying food, quality food to different parts of the world. We will benefit. We will generate jobs for ourselves. And the Prime Minister needs to go see Mr. Trump and learn from this gentleman. Say, look, if you want to go produce things in China and bring them in cheap, we're going to slap a huge tariff on them. So it's better for you to bring that investment here to create jobs for our people. Simple common sense.
But the thing is, until we actually come out of the EU, all of this fear-mongering is going to continue. And even the people on the street are getting fearful. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, well, I did vote to come out, but I'm actually now wondering whether I did the right thing. No wonder Tony Blair is saying we need a second referendum, because with all of the publicity of the fear-mongering, they're going to actually get voters to change their minds. They would. Not that there's going to be a second referendum, but we have to draw a line. We have to get on with it.
We have to definitely draw a line. And the problem we have today is that we have a generation that hasn't had, you know, they've had it so easy in life. They've been well looked after. They've been through schools, they, you know, everything. They just, the snowflakes, like this generation, like they call them. But the reality is that the ones who saw the war, they were the tough guys that you can say whatever you like. They are determined to make the country work. And we need to toughen these young people up and make them understand and say, listen, learn to do things by yourself. Don't rely on the EU. When you rely on others, that's when they take you as a slave, and it becomes like a socialist kind of operation where they now tell you what to do with your life and whatsoever. We don't want that. We need to train them to be able to stand on their own. If the EU wasn't there, wouldn't you fix the country?
Of course.